everybody, welcome to truly the worst hair day of the year. The wind in beautiful Palm Springs, California has not done me any favors, but today we're checking out the new Hyundai Ioniq 5 XRT, the off-road version, and we're gonna find out, is this a true off-roader or is it more of a poser? Let's go hit the trail. What you're looking at here is a 2025 Hyundai Ioniq 5. There's been some big updates for 2025, but in my opinion, the coolest and the biggest update is this car right here, the Ioniq 5 XRT. Now, XRT is what Hyundai calls their more aggressive off-road oriented crossovers, and this XRT Ioniq 5 is no exception. So let's talk about some of the changes between this car and the standard one, starting with the wheel and tire package. Now, what we're looking at here is a Continental cross-contact, what they would call it an all-terrain tire. It's a little bit more of a mild terrain tire, but a more aggressive set of meat compared to the standard Ioniq 5. It's also a satisfyingly small wheel relative to the sidewall. So we were driving the Limited earlier that had 20-inch wheels and a small sidewall. Well, the XRT has this 18-inch wheel with a thick sidewall. So kudos to Hyundai for making this happen. This is great. It's less likely to lead to flat tires, and you get just more compliance out on the trail. I also love this wheel design. They said they modeled it after an old school steel wheel, but of course it is a modern aluminum finish. Now, the most controversial part of this whole design has got to be the bumpers. You've got this now kind of ubiquitous pixel design that we see throughout the Hyundai lineup incorporated into the bumper. It's not just a flat plastic, it actually has some texture to it, and we see that in the lower front fascia here. Now, I actually think this looks really good with some of the darker colors like this gray, but when you get it on the white, we'll talk about it a little later in the video, I'm not sure that that look has gone quite the way they wanted. And then you get these big, bright red or orange tow hooks integrated in the front, and you know they work because they are red or orange. What's cool about this is they're not some aesthetic thing as we see in so many soft roaders. It is a genuine recovery point, which is huge. That is some awesome stuff that Hyundai has done. And then down here we do have the active aero, which can close up and increase the aerodynamics a little bit on this car. Now, it's not just a bumper color change, we actually have an improved approach angle. We've gone from 17.5 in the standard car to about 19.8 degrees of approach angle. The suspension is about 1 inch higher, and then the departure angle has gone from 24.5 degrees to 30 degrees. So along back here, we have a revised rear fascia with, once again, this black plastic look, and then they've incorporated XRT. They've actually molded it into the bumper finish. The car's nice and dirty. It's been out having some fun today. So pretty different design change on the outside, and you're probably wondering, well, what does that do from a range hit? If you look at the standard Ioniq 5, that does about 269 miles on a charge. This car, 259. So you get about a 10-mile hit by going to the XRT version of the Ioniq 5. They've changed the battery chemistry and the sizing for 2025. We're looking at an 84 kilowatt hour battery, and boom, that right there is the big news. It's gone to J3400, the Tesla NACS port, which means this car can now charge on the Tesla supercharger network, which is just awesome. Now, some subtle changes on the inside for the XRT over other cars. You get XRT there in the backrest. You get XRT here along the door, and this interior really quite good. Dual 12.3-inch screens, now has wireless Apple CarPlay, and Android Auto. But even more important for me is they've gone back to physical buttons. So the old Ioniq 5 had pretty much all the heated seat controls and stuff in the screen. The new one now has physical controls for heated seats and heated steering wheel located here. We also have a new phone as key situation, so this car can now use full wireless hands-free phone as the key. You don't have to take it out of your pocket to unlock the doors using the low-powered Bluetooth functionality. So they've done a lot of cool stuff with this new Ioniq 5, but the question is, does it go off-road? Well, let's go answer that question right now. So we're behind the wheel now of this new XRT in the desert of Palm Springs, where Hyundai has flown me out to give this car an initial first little look. And I'm gonna be honest, Hyundai's not gonna put together a course that the car is going to struggle at. So we're gonna have to wait until we get this car out in Colorado to see what the capability is really like. But if you look out the window, you can see we're kind of on this slightly rocky 2-track that winds its way through the desert. Now, initial impressions, well, something kind of cool which I'm noticing. Roberto, my amazing cameraman, if you look here, we've got this little power distribution, and if I put it into the terrain mode, let me go into sand. First of all, check this out. The colors on the multi-function 4 dots here actually change, which is kind of fun. And then I'm also noticing that it essentially locks the car into a 50-50 torque split front and rear. So if I gently accelerate here, you can see now we're getting even distribution front to back, where in the street modes, it greatly favors that rear axle. So we're gonna try to guide our way through this little course. Now, this car competes directly with the Ford Mustang Mach-E Rally. And that car, kind of a similar vibe. It's got a different suspension setup. It's got a slightly different look, but that's a car that Ford markets more for kind of high-speed off-road fun, drifting around in the gravel. The Ioniq 5, a little different, right? We've got tow hooks in the front, which is something that you really wouldn't need in a rally situation unless something's gone terribly wrong. You know, we've got kind of these blacked out front and rear bumpers. So the look of this car says I'm an off-road explorer, an adventurer, maybe like an overlander, not a rock crawler, but you know, an off-roader. The problem is that's what the persona of the car says. The reality though is we're still dealing with only about 7 inches of ground clearance, so not a lot of clearance underneath this Ioniq 5. Now, the course we're on here has been pretty sandy, and I think it's been quite well groomed, but it's still, I'm not sure I would want to take this car out into the desert just by myself, you know, and because it's good, and then you quickly run into the limits of what it's capable of. However, that aside, this is a vehicle that is much happier if you are going out on, you know, some mild to moderate 2-track to get to like a cool trailhead or to a cool camp spot, because it does have a little bit more clearance, and then more importantly, from an off-road capability standpoint, it comes with decent rubber from the factory. So we're running an all-terrain, I'd call it more of like a mild terrain. It's not like a KO3 or an AT4W. It's a little bit more mild than that, but it does give me a lot more confidence that if I'm out in the sand, it's not going to get punctured. Now we got a little bit of a sandy bit here. We're going to pick up a little bit of speed. Nice loose surface underneath us. I'm in the sand mode currently. Let's rip it to the left here. Let's see if we can kick it out a little. Okay, yeah, pretty good. It's not bad. And now we're on these little whoops, so I'm going to pick up a little bit of speed. Let's see how the suspension copes. It's about 30 miles an hour. Feels good. They changed the tuning around. It's definitely softly sprung. I'd be curious to see how this XRT drives on the road. I think it would probably be pretty floaty, but in this kind of stuff, that suspension feels really good. And the sand mode also appears to be doing a good job of not limiting wheel spin. This is one of the complaints I've had with the Hyundai XRT cars for a long time. There's a bunch of them, right? There's like the Tucson XRT and a bunch of different flavors of other, and Kia with the X Pro, same thing, is that they give you the look, but they don't actually give you any additional modes, nothing like that. Well, this car, they do give you additional modes. So this terrain mode selector, you can go through snow, mud, and sand. Notice there's no rock mode, so I appreciate that Hyundai is self-aware that, look, this is not a rock crawler, but it's doing quite well. I like this trim a lot. If I was shopping for a Hyundai Ioniq 5, I might buy this because A, I think it looks cool. Maybe not in the white with the black bumpers. It kind of looks like you were in a car that was in an accident, and then you got new bumper covers, but you couldn't afford to paint them. I hate to say it, but that's kind of, or like it's like the 1990s, and you're buying your Ford Escort, but you couldn't get the GLX, you got the G or the L. So now you end up with unpainted bumper covers. It's a little harsh, it's kind of what it looks like, but if you don't get the white, if you get like a black or a darker color, it does hide that almost unfinished look. But I love the red tow hooks. I think those are cool. And I like this steel wheel. Say steel because it is an aluminum wheel look. But like if you live in Colorado, you wanted a ski car just to be able to go out and do some adventuring, this is a pretty cool option. I would love to see Hyundai take it further. There's a rumor that there's an Audi coming up that's going to have actual ground clearance, like 32-inch tall tires, maybe even portals. Like it'd be really cool if Hyundai went the next step to make this more in line with like a Rivian would be awesome. And they could do it. They have the engineering capability, and I think the eGMP platform would be really cool if they gave this like a 2-3 inch lift, big tires, a locking rear diff. As it sits, still a pretty mild treatment, but at least they're pushing the bounds a little bit, and for that, I applaud them. So we're here with Roberto Baldwin.
Hi.
One of my good friends from SAE International. And Robbie, we've both been driving this new XRT off-road a little bit. What are your first impressions?
I actually like it. I think as long as you sort of temper your expectations, I think what happens with a lot of these vehicles is that consumers don't quite understand that these are not vehicles built for like extreme off-roading. Instead, they're built for sort of tracks like this, where you have a dirt road, you have some sand, maybe you're going to drive through a riverbed. It's very much like, oh, I want to drive out to this very weird place in the desert or in the mountains, in fire roads.
Coachella.
And what's nice is, it has different modes, so you can kind of whip it around. You can sort of disable the stability controls a bit, so you can sort of get a little fun going. But this is it's like rally light. I think that's what I want to call it. It's rally. Like right now we're in some pretty deep sand, and
we found the limit there.
We found the limit of the vehicle. I hope Hyundai doesn't see this, but it's sand. It'll be fine.
It'll be fine. It's soft.
It's a giant battery underneath. But for overall, that's pretty much the limit of this vehicle. Is like you find some deep sand, you can kind of cruise through it. Are you going to bottom out? It's only got 7 inches of clearance, so yeah,
maybe.
Probably. maybe. So yeah, are you going to bottom out when you hit that 8 inches? Yeah, yes, you are. Yes, you definitely are.
Turns out, yeah. No, yeah. I think you're right. So speaking of the price point on this car, right, starting at about 55 grand, if I remember correctly. Now, it's kind of near the top of the Ioniq spectrum. So like a limited can be had for more money, and a limited will also have stuff like ventilated seats. So this car has the heated seats and the heated steering wheel, which are now physical buttons, by the way, which is great. We also have wireless charging tray and the new 12.3-inch screens, and of course the native charge connector. But do you think the value is here?
I think for some people, I think it is. I think there's always a hunger in the market for something that feels a little bit more rugged, that feels a little bit more off-road. Again, like a lot of these sort of rugged off-road versions of gas vehicles, they are essentially built for the same track.
Sure.
And so this is just sort of the EV version of that. And what's nice about the EV version is you're getting some really fun torque vectoring that you're not going to get on traditional gas vehicles, because their torque vectoring is usually based on braking. There's a very fun video of a Bronco Sport torque vectoring in the sand that Car and Driver did.
Yeah.
Where it looks like the center of the rear tire is on fire.
Oh my gosh. Interesting. I'll have to check that out. So yeah, I think like we were saying, perfect for this kind of road. Looks pretty cool. Got some cool tow hooks on it. But if you want to go more than this, you're going to have to want to look at a proper four-wheel drive with more clearance.
You'll probably end up with the Rivian.
So the new Ioniq 5 XRT. Look, Hyundai has really expanded the lineup of the Ioniq, from the standard entry-level cars to the luxury limited trim to the off-road XRT and the Ioniq 5N, so they're really covering the whole gamut of vehicles. I wish they would have taken it just a little bit further with this XRT, especially considering the base price of $55,400. However, it's a pretty cool trim, a little bit unusual, that'll definitely set you apart. And if you're just looking for something to get to the cool campsites or the more aggressive trailheads, that right there is a good option in the Ioniq 5 family. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. This has been Tommy over at TFL. Head over to alltfl.com where we got more videos for you.